Thanks for joining Just Us Chatting. I'm Tamara.
And I'm Michael, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's going on in Colorado, and actually in a bunch of different states. There's quite a few other states that have taken this up recently. The Electoral College, and kind of a push to effectively abolish the Electoral College among a certain number of states. So the way the bill basically goes is once enough states have accepted this proposal that they would together equal the number of electoral votes required to elect a president, then the agreement would go into effect that at that point all of those states would give their electoral votes to whoever won the popular vote nationally. So the idea is that tie the electoral votes to the national popular vote.
Yeah.
And it already passed the. It's probably going to pass in Colorado. It already passed the state senate. It's got to go before the state House of Representatives, and then Governor Jared Polis will have the opportunity to sign it. We're sure that he will. If that happens, they're going to vote on this either today or tomorrow in Colorado in the House. And
hasn't it already passed in California, New York, and New Jersey?
Yeah, it's already passed in a couple other places. It's actually, I mean, it's no it's no wonder that California and New York would have already passed it. It's like, really? Wow, amazing that they would be like so in favor of everyone else giving their electoral votes to them.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
Because that's what it amounts to, right? It's like it totally defeats, well, I mean, obviously it defeats the purpose of the Electoral College, and there's been a lot of different arguments that I've heard recently against the Electoral College. I think almost all of them amount to, I didn't really pay attention to this until Trump was elected, and now I'm just like really shocked. I think that's what basically it boils down to.
Yeah.
And everyone's really like, oh, I can't believe it because Trump's in office because we got this stupid rule. It's like
it's so reactionary.
It's very, very reactionary. It's not informed. It's really it's totally
emotion based.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
probably
hyper partisan and it's sophomoric and it's stupid.
Yeah.
I don't like to be this animated about things, but it's really a bad. And I've heard. Okay, so one of the most popular lines of reasoning I've heard from people.
Yeah.
Is that, let me just fix our microphone a little bit here, just in case. One of what was it? The idea that, well, it makes the flyover states overrepresented, right?
The Electoral College.
Yeah, that they're overrepresented and that they're perfectly well represented because every state has 2 senators,
right? Regardless of their
population, and then the House of Representatives is by population, so so there's balance there. It's like, well, okay, yes, that's balance in the legislative branch, but if you're aware of the fact that we have more than one branch of government, and you're aware of the fact that we're trying to maintain balance in all 3 branches, some semblance of representation, right? Then it shouldn't come as a surprise that we have an electoral college as a way to do the same thing for the executive branch.
Right.
Okay? The fact that the legislative branch is, balanced by, this House and Senate idea has nothing to do with the fact that we still have a president to elect. And the president should also be representative of not just people who live in big cities.
Right, exactly.
If the president is representative of just people who lives in big, if it's just tied to the national popular vote, then every election we will get the president. Right now they're saying, okay, if you have this, it creates these battleground states, right? Because of the Electoral College, there's only a handful of states that really matter. Well, first of all, those states change over time because demographics change and opinions change.
Right.
Right? So the fact that a Republican can pretty much rely on Wyoming and doesn't have to go to Wyoming to get those votes.
Yeah.
I mean, does that really
matter?
Is that really like a big deal?
Yeah. Not in my mind.
No. Not really.
So what? He doesn't have to go to every single state to try to campaign.
Right.
Okay.
There are going to be states that are going to be battleground states, and Ohio has been a battleground state for a long time. Okay, Midwest, fine.
Yeah.
Very long time. But the battleground, the Midwest changes,
right? And
demographics change. Cities rise and fall. Like the population centers move, people change.
Yeah.
Things change, and so the battleground states shift. They're called battleground states because they're areas where you can't be sure where the votes are going to come down. Right.
So you have to campaign a little harder.
So you have to go there and campaign a little harder.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you do away with the Electoral College, then basically like just the big cities are going to decide who wins, and it's always going to be Democratic.
Right.
Because generally speaking, the vast majority of people in big cities vote democratically.
Yeah.
So everyone that lives in like rural areas, they're just going to be left behind.
Yep.
And you don't the president doesn't even have to go campaign there,
right?
Because they know, what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, yeah. There's exactly. They want to take the derogatory flyover state and make it legal. They want to make those people don't matter.
Yeah.
They just don't matter.
Yeah.
And everyone should be, subject to the kinds of rules and regulations that benefit people in cities.
Yeah.
Well, that would be horrible for people in rural areas. Those policies are not good for people in rural areas, all right? And I've made this case too. If you want to drastically reduce the power of the executive branch, right?
Yeah.
Be like, okay, well, let's get rid of all these regulatory agencies then.
Yeah.
Right? That exist under the control of the president.
Right.
Right? It's not, because if we were just legislating in the legislative branch, right, instead of creating legislation to create a bureaucracy to manage the rules that you'll actually have to live by, which is exactly what's going on, right? Congress has abdicated their responsibility to write laws, right? And they've said, well, what we'll actually do is we'll get a team of specialists, right? And we'll make an agency that's in charge of making sure that stuff works right. Right? So then what you do is you get the elected officials can say, well, we didn't mean that they should, make bad legislations and bad regulations. They can
kind of wash their hands of it
right.
And be like, well, that wasn't us.
Yeah, we just said there should be an agency to do this. They're the experts. How come you're mad at you can't be mad at us about that. They're totally abdicating their responsibility to create good legislation. They should be the ones listening to experts and then crafting laws based on that.
Yeah.
Not just putting it off into some agency where then the president can appoint people. Right? Because now we've got a system where the executive branch has an incredible amount of power. We've got like 7 different law enforcement branches. We've got we've got things like the EPA has a SWAT team.
Yeah.
The
IRS has a SWAT team.
The IRS has a SWAT team. There's a sprawling federal bureaucracy. That is constantly like tacking on new little agencies to manage this and that all over the nation.
It's a total nanny state.
And the fact is that the urban areas have massive economies that can maintain heavy regulatory burdens.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't work in rural areas.
No,
it just doesn't. And it's a totally different. We're not living in a Democrat versus Republican thing. It's the real differences in the real differences in politics are rural versus conservative.
Although it feels like a lot of progressives and Democrats are moving towards these rural areas. Like in this town, I mean, it used to be.
There's little pockets of rich people who like going skiing.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Or people that just like to be out in nature, so they move to small towns from the big city, but they keep their progressive ideas, they keep their democratic ideas, and it's fine, but I don't really want a whole lot more regulations in this town. I like the fact that it's pretty low key here. You can walk your dog off the leash, until you see someone else and you put them on, but there's plenty of room to have your dog off the leash, unless it's a busy day.
Yep. Yep, that's a perfect example of the kinds of the kinds of things that make sense. And I mean, it's an obvious, everyday, simplistic example. Okay, I'm not. Whatever. The point is, that's a perfect example of the kind of regulations that make sense in an urban area is leash laws. You just can't have your dog off the leash.
And you have to clean up after your dog. There's not enough space and, nature to take care of that. It's concrete. You got to clean up after your dog.
Right.
There's there's parks, but there's too many people to not be cleaning up after your animal.
Right. Now out here,
there's plenty of space. If you're out...
It doesn't make any sense.
If you're in town, clean up after your dog. If you're out of town, and if it's near the path, clean it up. But if it's off in the bushes, you leave it,
There's miles and miles and miles of, of area where you can walk around with your dog off leash and nobody's going to see it.
Yeah.
And so it makes absolutely no sense to have a regulation that says, look, if we see you with your dog off leash, on some camera or on a drone or something like this, then we're going to send you a ticket. We're going to send you a fine. You're going to be fined for this. There's no reason for it out here.
Yeah.
There are reasons for it in urban areas. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have those kinds of regulations in urban areas. And I'm not saying that there aren't regulations that make sense, that are absolutely appropriate, in an urban area.
But you need to have different rules and regulations.
Yeah.
We don't need as many in rural areas. We need more in...
It's a very different way of living.
Yeah.
Let's just say it that. Let's just leave it at that. It's an incredibly different way of living. It's an entirely different set of rules. All it does out here, over-regulation in rural areas just breeds corruption.
Yeah.
Because there's no way for anyone to actually reasonably live up to all the regulations.
Yeah.
In such a small economy in these little towns. So all you get is, one person holding 10 different government spots, right? And they're just getting, paid off, and they're just this powerful person, right? And so there's these little busybody tin pot dictators become, the Stalin of these little towns. You know what I mean? It's
if you with the more regulations.
You can't. You've got to limit this stuff. And so anyway, the point is, there's very, very, very different ways of living, and it's not like, oh yeah, the way it's different out in the country is that people are rapists and murderers and racists. Okay, it's a slower pace, different values, and it needs to be represented.
Yeah.
Okay, and not just in the legislative branch, but also in who we elect for president.
Exactly.
So, look, I'm not happy about the fact that Trump won. I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't like the guy, right? I think he's doing terrible things to the conservative side of politics.
Yeah. A lot of conservatives don't like him. But I think a lot of maybe conservatives like him better than they would have liked Hillary.
Well, of course.
But
that's because we knew what Hillary was. Right? And there was a chance that Trump wouldn't be that. Because he's flamboyant and weird and just, whatever. He's something else. It's okay, we know that we don't want that, whatever she represented, okay? Speaking as, random conservative. In, broad categorical manner here. But, okay, we know what she represents because Hillary was... if there was ever a more like perfect embodiment of the establishment Democrat, I don't think there ever has been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's the definitive establishment Democrat. It's like, we know exactly what that is. It's established. You know what I mean? Like, there's no questions there.
Right.
And so the conservatives go, yeah, we absolutely don't want that.
Right.
And then the question is, do I not want that so badly that I'm willing to take a risk on this guy who might even just be doing the same kinds of things that she would put into place?
Right.
Because he was talking about universal health care on the campaign trail. He was talking about, you know, I mean, he's already...
Well, he was, I mean, wasn't he
pushed
a Democrat back in the 80s?
He was a bump, yeah, and I mean, like, so, like, it's not like there was a lot of trust, you know? It was almost an entirely cultural push. It was just like, at least this guy says rude things, right? Like,
well, because so many people. Why is it good that he says rude things? Because,
I don't think it is, but so many people are
because they're sick of the whole PC, like,
right.
politically correct culture.
People were incredibly tired of the PC authoritarians.
Yeah.
Right.
Which it's like, okay, but do we have to go to the opposite extreme?
I don't know. Apparently we did. You know. Apparently we did, and that's terrible. You know, but part of that. When I say apparently we did and it's terrible, I don't mean, oh, you know, shame on these people for voting for him. I mean, shame on the Democrats for creating such a stultifying and, you know, oppressive culture that people can't talk.
Yeah.
Right? It's like not everyone lives, you know, not everyone has a PhD in gender studies and reads the New Yorker. You know? So, like, they need the fact that those people are basically running our culture from the top down.
Yeah.
You know, in NBC, ABC, MSNBC, all these, you know, they're basically running the culture from the top down. And then, you know, you got Fox News, which has incredible ratings because it's the only alternative to the other 10, you know, left-wing
It's the only
networks.
thing that conservatives can go to and get what the kind of news they want.
Right. So the fact they've got great ratings it has nothing to do with the fact that they provide like a really awesome product. It has to do with the fact that it's the only option for people who don't want to be force-fed, you know, PC authoritarianism.
Right.
It's the only option.
Yeah.
And so if there's a whole, you know, slew of companies all competing to sell hot dogs, you know, and then some other company comes along and says, you know, we're going to make bratwursts. You know, it's like, well, people who want bratwursts, it's like, it's the only one.
Be thrilled, yeah.
So they get, you know, like, up until that point, everyone who's like, man, I really like a bratwurst. They look around, there was nowhere to buy them. So they just bought hot dogs instead. You know, and then all of a sudden someone shows up and goes, no, I'll sell you a bratwurst. Boom, half the population goes over there and then, you know, so it's not because they're offering something that's that much better or that great. It's just that they're the only option.
Right.
It's supply and demand, you know? Like, it's not like Fox News is great.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, when the president talks about his, you know, great ratings and whatever, this kind of stuff, it's not because you're great. It's not because you're great. It's because you're the only option. Like, I didn't vote for him. I was hoping he would lose. I didn't want anyone to vote for him. But you know.
But we also weren't going to vote for Hillary either.
No, I wasn't going to vote for Hillary either. I didn't want the establishment, you know.
But a lot of people felt like he was anti-establishment, or that somehow he was, you know, the bomb that would go off in the establishment. And
that's why I didn't vote for him, because I didn't want to throw a bomb at the establishment. I wanted to dissect the establishment with a libertarian candidate that would like take some things apart, repeal a few things, back things up, get some more civil liberties.
Right.
You know. I didn't want to throw a bomb in there, you know? Trump is a Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, the country is so divisive right now that I don't even know that the third party, that the Libertarian Party has a chance at all in the future. Nope. Because people are so like, don't want that, I'm going to be over here, way over here.
I don't know. I think we do need a third party. That's one point on the whole idea of, you know, abolishing the Electoral College, is that it helps to maintain a two-party system. that I don't really like that idea.
Yeah.
But
well, I wonder though how it would be with the popular vote if you get rid of the Electoral College. I still don't think that the Libertarian Party is going to have much of a shot. You know.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, and we might find out in the coming years here.
Yeah. Well, I don't know either. I think that primarily the Libertarian Party's best role or primary role is to kind of educate and promote libertarian policies.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Yeah.
Civil
Less
rights.
Government intervention and
the protection of civil rights.
Right, exactly.
The protection of civil liberties.
Exactly. I'm surprised there's not more libertarians out there, to be honest.
There's actually a lot of libertarians who are like libertarian, but they're not libertarian voters.
In the way they
right?
vote, yes.
Because
they don't think that it's going to have an effect.
Right.
But the thing is, if more of us libertarians would vote libertarian, then maybe we'd have a shot. Maybe that party would have a shot.
Yeah, maybe. But
and maybe we'd have also better candidates.
But the problem is getting that many people educated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole host of objections to, throwing your vote away. You know what I mean? And so you've got to first convince someone that libertarian ideas are worth listening to. Second, you've got to convince them that, this vote isn't the most important vote in history, and it's worth, it might be worthwhile to throw your vote behind someone who probably won't win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you really have to that's a tough case to make. Right?
It is.
It's worthwhile to give your vote, which pretty much means nothing already, but to go ahead and put that behind someone who's probably not going to win. Most likely won't win, right? That's a really hard sell.
This is why they need to be allowed to be in the national debates. Libertarian candidates need to be able to have their voices heard enough so that more people can hear what they have to say and maybe be swayed by it and maybe realize that, oh, hey, libertarianism is not too far off from what I'm all about.
That's the only reason I voted for Gary Johnson in the last election, because...
Well, first of all, we knew Hillary was going to win. We were in Illinois at the time. We knew Hillary was going to win our state. We weren't big, huge fans of him necessarily.
Johnson?
Yeah. He was a little bit of a joke. No offense, but... the more I listened to him, at first I was kind of like, oh yeah, he's cool. But then the more I listened to him, I was like, all right, he's a little rough. But it'd be nice to actually have them on, the actual national debates.
Yes.
And I don't know.
Yeah, it would be nice to just to include the libertarian candidate in the national debates would be great. And so I was thinking, well, if we can at least get to 15% on this libertarian ticket when we've got the world's worst two candidates ever in the history of the United States.
Yeah, I have no idea how that happened. Well,
maybe in that situation when it's between a reality TV star and a corpse, we could get somebody. Maybe we could get enough of groundswell. It's something that we got about 12% of the vote in the Libertarian
Party. Yeah, we need
Party.
15 to get
15% would have put libertarians on the stage, for national elections. And they would have been able to stop spending their money on trying to get on the ballot, and they would have been able to. They would have automatically been granted ballot access almost all the way across the state. So that's one of the biggest problems.
Across the state or across the nation?
Across the nation. That's one of the biggest problems with the whole idea is,
third
party. Okay, so we're getting off into third party stuff. But I just wanted to, I wanted to bring up this article.
Sure.
This guy, Senator Mike Foote. Let me put his article up here real quick. So there he is, Senator Mike. It's time to end the tyranny of the battleground states, he says. So let me get this out of the way a little bit so I can see what's going on. Okay. So this is published in the Colorado Sun. This guy's a senator, so he was writing an opinion piece for the Colorado Sun. And his arguments against I'm going to call it arguments, against the Electoral College go like this. Every 4 years, approximately 12 so-called battleground states and their dominant blocks of electoral voters consume virtually all of the presidential candidates' time, money, and attention. The remaining 38 states and the District of Columbia are virtually ignored because presidential candidates see no reason to campaign in places where they are so far behind that they cannot possibly win, or where they are so far ahead that they cannot possibly lose. Well, gee. I mean, that's just terrible, right? Isn't that terrible? That, like, your argument is that a presidential candidate should be spending time in the state
where
for some reason?
Know that they're gonna win, or
or where, like, why is that? Why does that make any sense at all? Like, so there's 38 states that are pretty much going to go one way or the other, and everybody basically knows that. So why?
So what is the problem with them only having to spend time in 12 states?
Right. And how does giving the electoral votes from Colorado to the winner of the popular vote nationally fix that problem?
Right.
It doesn't. What it does do is it says, okay, now instead of those 12 battleground states, you just go to all the major cities.
Right.
Right? It basically means that presidential candidates never have to see how people in rural areas live. They can stay ensconced in their urban mansions and high-rises, and they can go to little events, and they can fly across the center of the country to other places where they can, sit at a Starbucks, and they can, get foie gras and sit at 5-star restaurants and, have an urban lifestyle.
Right.
And then they can walk out in front of some big skyscraper into some plaza and, say some things to a bunch of people standing on a bunch of concrete in the middle of a downtown area and, say the things those people want to hear. Right. They never, ever have to go to the center of the country. Right? That's what we're basically saying. And
then it kind of means that Republicans are going to have to become a lot more left. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to have to change their tune a lot if they want to get the popular vote.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's
because seriously, I mean, urban areas are predominantly left.
Yeah.
They're predominantly Democratic. So if Republicans want to ever win the presidency again,
they have to pander to people in cities.
Yeah, they have to pander to people in cities. So
the point is, this doesn't actually, if what you're saying is, there's these states where, where we're not sure whether they'll go this way or that way, and sometimes they go Republican and sometimes they go Democrat, is like, so because of that, those are the only places that get any attention.
It's going to even be worse than that.
Giving the electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote doesn't solve that problem at all. It just shifts that problem to New York City and LA.
And
Chicago, right? So you're like 3, 4, 5 major population centers, maybe 12 so-called battleground cities. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to have.
Yeah.
And not only will they only be we'll have 12 battleground cities instead of 12 battleground states, but they won't have anything to do with what the vast center of the nation, rural people living in rural areas need or want. Right. Will have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It'll be the entire nation will be ruled by urban politics. This does not solve the problem, even a little bit. It just shifts it into your preferred demographic, and it's bullshit. There's Colorado's a big state. We've got Denver, okay, but there's a lot of rural people in Colorado. Yeah. People who like the mountains, like rural living.
Yeah.
They like living in the high desert and in the mountains.
There's still cowboys.
There's cowboys out here. You think these people don't need any representation at all, right? And when they do vote, when they go out and they vote for a Republican, because they will, you're just going to say, even if the popular vote in Colorado goes Republican, right? But New York and LA, right, go to a Democrat, you're going to take all the votes from Colorado and you're going to give them to a Democrat instead.
Right.
That's what you're saying? This is not a representative democracy.
Yeah.
That's not how you do representative democracy. That's terrible.
It's not like the Electoral College way of doing things is perfect.
No.
But it's way better than that. It's way more representative of the population, and like it's way more fair and balanced than doing the popular vote.
It's like, okay, here's the question. And this is here's when everyone's like, "Oh, well, yeah, there's more people in the city, so the people should I'm sorry, but there's a significant like the difference between people living in rural areas culturally and people living in urban areas culturally that's the biggest, most important divide in our culture right now. Right? If those two, like the whole balance, the whole reason we have an electoral college is to help navigate that balance, that necessary balance. It's pretty obvious that farmers, right, don't need the same kinds of things that someone who runs a coffee shop in LA needs.
Yeah.
They're not this. We don't need the same kind of governing bodies. We don't need the same kinds of regulations, rules. We don't want the same kinds of representation. Totally different needs. I've lived in both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's completely different. It's just, there's no, and the whole so the whole reason that the Senate and the House was set up, same reason that we've got the Electoral College, right? Because we live in a republic, right? The idea is to prevent people from being ruled by the tyranny of the majority. Right. So you shouldn't. I mean, some people say the fact that you can have a majority vote and still get the fact that Hillary won. You can have a majority vote for Hillary, and you can have somebody else actually take the victory.
Right.
That's a reason that we shouldn't have the Electoral College, right? I'm saying that's not the case because the fact that there's 18 million people or whatever in Los Angeles metropolitan area, whatever, right? Or there's probably more than that, but it's not like those people are that different from each other.
Right.
The fact they vote the same way is not a surprise.
Right. Yeah.
Right. 5% of the vote in LA went to, or what was it, in Oakland? 5% of the vote in Oakland went to Trump.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that there's a lot of people living in the same place that have the same values does not mean that people who live in other places and have different values shouldn't be represented.
Right.
It's just not the case. The whole reason for the Electoral College is to address the fact that minorities deserve rights. The fact that you're a minority is not a good enough reason to ignore the way that you want things done.
Right.
It's not a good enough reason.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? That's always been the, kind of the battle cry of the Republic, or the battle cry of the, Republican Party. Republican Party was the party, it was the abolitionist party, it was the party of Lincoln, it was the party that abolished slavery, it was the party that was the party of civil rights.
Yeah, I don't get how people don't remember that, or they don't know that.
The whole time, it's always the whole idea of a republic, thus Republican, right, is to protect minorities and individuals from the abuses imposed upon them by the majority.
Right.
Right. So, of course, the Democrats want to abuse the minority. right? They want the majority to abuse the minority. That's what they've always wanted. That's why they were the party of slavery, the Ku Klux Klan, all of this. Because
they don't
they
know
want
that
the
now.
majority.
Or they like to
right, but that's the
pretend
whole.
that wasn't the case.
Of course they do, but I mean that's the root of the word. The democracy, like the idea of direct democracy. Democracy is mob rule.
I was just gonna say it's the mob, man.
Right.
The mob, man. They're not like a good thing.
It's majority rule, right? What is democracy? It's majority rule.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? It means the majority rules over the minority.
So this group of people over here wanna, hang me for, because whatever. Then that doesn't make it right.
We'll all vote on it. We'll all vote on it.
Right.
Right. That's what democracy is.
Yeah.
Democracy is two wolves and a sheep, deciding on what's for dinner. Right. Let's vote.
And the Republican Party is more about the power of the individual and the rights of the individual, which...
And the minorities.
Yeah.
Right? And like actual principles. Individual, like human rights. Right? Principled human rights.
And
the fact that individuals have certain rights just because they're human, right?
Yeah.
This has always been the thing of the Republican
Democrats
Party.
try to act like they're the party of compassion and, trying to help the little guy and
they pretend that, but it's majoritarian,
rule.
Yeah, it's a collectivist ideology, right? And so collectivism is basically, the whole bunch of us is more important than you as an individual, right? Well, the whole bunch of us isn't actually a thing. You as an individual are. So when the whole bunch of us, this crazy idea, whatever that is, this collective kind of abstraction deems that your rights aren't important, that's a good enough reason. That's the whole thrust of collectivism, is that there's a greater good that's more important than your individual rights. And the thrust of individualism is that when you allow people's individual rights to flourish and be protected, right, and you don't impose that protection on other people, right? So you set up the fact that all people have individual rights. You protect individual rights, you protect people's individual rights against people who are trying to infringe on them, but you don't force someone to observe, their rights. It's not like you're not forced to celebrate homosexuality or something, right? Sure. Whatever. It's
But you're forced to respect people,
right?
Other people, because
if you can't, it's not like you can. Somebody wants to get married, they're gay. That's fine, right? That's fine. It's nobody's business. You're not allowed to go in there and be like, "This is an abomination," rah rah. Like they rented a space, they're having a party, they're with their family. You know what I mean? They have property rights, they have individual human rights. You get out of there. That's not your space, right?
You can't infringe upon their...
You can't infringe upon their desire to do that, right? You're not welcome. You're trespassing. Get out, right? But, right? They can't be like, we're going to commandeer your house for our wedding ceremony. Right. They don't have that right.
Right.
Okay? So, as long as you set up this thing where people have individual rights and you allow those rights you allow people to be free, insofar as they don't infringe on each other's rights, you actually create, the kind of system that is most just and fair.
Would you say these are classical liberal values too,
yes.
Right? So I mean, it's not just the Republicans that are for individual rights, and I mean, classical liberalism.
This is a big problem too with the shifting of culture. Is whenever culture really shifts, you have to redefine things because the words that you've used in the past don't make sense anymore.
Right. So
the liberalism of the 60s is not the liberalism of today. Right? The liberalism of the modern Enlightenment, for example, right, is basically the liberalism that carried all the way through the 60s. Okay, and then that was just modernism, orange meme modernism, individual rights, right? The green meme systems theories, stuff like that, right? Which was again a collectivist thing. It's all about systems and not about individuals. That's a newer wave, And so the further progressive left is a different kind of thing that's not what we refer to as, what we used to refer to as liberal. The problem with that is that the people on the right are generally not sophisticated enough to make that distinction. And so they just go, yeah, they're all liberals.
Yeah.
Right? But there's a difference between classical liberals, libertarian types, and
far left.
And the kind of postmodern identitarian left.
Right.
Right? They're not liberal by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
They're something entirely different. They're, an authoritarian, well, some of them. And what seems to be manifesting politically.
Yeah.
Of course it's manifesting politically because politics is all about authority.
Right.
So the new wave of, cultural leftism that's manifesting itself is rooted in, postmodern ideas.
An aperspectival madness.
Aperspectival madness. Yeah, as Ken Wilber would say in his new book.
I forget what the book was called.
Post-Trump world, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Trump and a post-truth world.
Right, Trump and a post-truth world.
So,
but yeah, I mean, it's a great way to, it's a great word for it. It actually makes sense. Yeah. Aperspectival madness. No perspective is better. Well, except for our perspective.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an Ouroboros. But of course, the authoritarian impulses of the green meme are manifesting in politics because politics is all about authoritarian impulses.
Yeah.
It's all about telling people what they can and can't do.
Yeah. It's all about grabbing more power.
Yeah. Politics is power. It's power over others. That's what politics basically is. Right? And so, of course, the worst aspects of any ideology or any, kind of manifest themselves in the political realm. You've got you've got people running, this libertarian thing. Like politically, it's like it can be in the political realm, libertarian ideas are generally not used to reform the criminal justice system, for example, right? A lot of street level libertarians and libertarian activists and people who believe in libertarian ideals would love for that to be the case.
Yeah.
But when money and power get involved and like, okay, well, who can we get as a candidate and stuff like this? Even in that regard, you end up with. Sometimes you get the grassroots stuff and you get good people in there. That's true in any party. But libertarian ideals that get supported and backed by a lot of money are generally like pro-business. Right? People looking for more freedom for their business.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So it's like, okay.
Right.
Like I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I actually can because I'm libertarian. I think it's okay.
But not when it comes to the prison.
But like exactly, like I don't think that's a good idea for private prisons, right? Yeah. So like these ideals, especially when it comes to, because politics is power over others, right? People who are seeking that power over others are going to gravitate towards that. Those are the worst kinds of people. Those are people we don't want ruling things, and they're the people who end up doing it because they're the people who go after it.
Right. I have a question. It's kind of off topic. Maybe I heard John McAfee is thinking about running in 2020. Is he a libertarian?
Yeah, he's run. If he's gonna run, he'll probably run as a libertarian.
Okay, he's an interesting character, and I hadn't thought about him.
He's hilarious. Like
since the last election,
there's great pictures of him like with. I think there's a picture of him with like a massive gun, like some sort of semi-automatic or automatic weapon. I think he's got like a 50 caliber machine gun on a table in front of him, and a pile of cocaine, and like women in bikinis all around him. And he's got cocaine all over his face, and he's like McAfee 2020.
Seriously?
I think it was the 2016 election. He put that out as like a real thing.
Yes. That is hilarious.
Oh,
I mean, if nothing else, he is an extremely eccentric individual, and, you know, I doubt he'd get anywhere close to, you know, being a real candidate, but he's got money, so he could make his way through a little bit.
I go and look up the images, and the antivirus software comes up.
Yeah.
2016 presidential.
You should, if you find it, you should put it up.
So just kind of, he's crazy.
He's got a gun to his head in one of them.
Yeah. So like, you know, there's like, oh yeah, this is kind of, you know, whatever. But then there's this, you know, and there's this. He's like, I'm gonna light my cigarette in this, you know.
Is it $1? That's
yeah, he's that's $100 bill. It's like, I'm gonna light this $100 bill on fire and light my cigarette with it. And then let's see if we can find the.
But aren't there some other crazy characters that are planning to run in 2020 that you're kind of like, oh, is this the one? Well, there's one. No.
But I mean, that's pretty typical. You know what I mean? You see pictures of him hanging out with people with guns and bikinis, and he's basically an anti-surveillance state kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like he's
yeah.
He doesn't. He's kind of
he's an extreme libertarian, almost like
He's
anarchist.
kind of like anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah.
Probably, but like he's just. I don't know. I like him. And at the same time,
you wouldn't really want him as president.
I don't know, man. Oh, here we go.
Oh, jeez. That's not photoshopped, is it? Are you sure that's not photoshopped?
No, I'm sure part of it is.
Oh,
you know,
jeez.
but there's like. No, maybe it's not.
Wow. But the bath salts on the side, are you sure? That looks
like like he's sitting here in this thing, and he's gonna like all these women gonna take his clothes off.
Oh my gosh.
Like he's snorting. I don't think it's bath salts.
It looks staged at the very least.
Yeah.
Like it looks like he staged it. Like I don't know.
Like this guy for president, right?
At least he's not hiding who he truly is. I mean, I'm sure Trump.
See, that's what everyone said about Trump. They're like,
right.
oh, at least he's shooting straight. It's like, no.
He's
like
not,
that's the thing.
no.
I was gonna say, like, if I were gonna throw, if I wanted to throw a Molotov cocktail into the system, it'd be this guy, not Trump.
Right. Although I'm sure Trump is no stranger to coke and women and you know, extreme impropriety.
Obviously.
So. Anyways.
Anyway,
I was just
McAfee 2020, bitches.
PewDiePie 2020.
PewDiePie, that's right, PewDiePie. He can't be president. He's
not even old enough. Oh, and he's not native born. I don't think he's 35 yet. Don't you have to be 35?
I don't know. He might be old enough.
I thought he was fairly young.
Maybe 29. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, but you're right. He's Swedish.
Yep.
He's a man
Subscribe
after my own. A man after my own heritage.
The gap between PewDiePie and T-Series is closing.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I didn't. So that's the thing where they had like more followers, or they had more followers than him, but then a bunch of people.
No. He's always had more.
Oh, okay.
But
so the gap's closing. They're catching up.
Yeah. Well, actually, like there was a chart. PewDiePie T-Series chart. Let's see. If we do. Is this one?
Ooh.
All right. So
they're like neck and neck almost. Or
they're
close.
pretty darn close, right? So like if you can see over here, this is the gap in subscribers. It's been going down pretty consistently, and then it popped up and.
On PewDiePie?
Yeah, the gap between PewDiePie and T-Series, it used to be pretty high. And then last year it kind of.
And T-Series is like some Asian company or what? Japanese or
Indian. Yeah, they're from India, and it's a company. It's a music and kind of they do music and video shorts and TV stuff, right? So they're a production company. So actually, apparently, music is the highest subscribed to channel. But again, it's not an individual; it's a group.
Right.
So this kind of weird thing with PewDiePie and T-Series isn't even a real thing. It's PewDiePie is by far the highest subscribed to individual, whereas T-Series is the second highest subscribed to company. Right. Or collective, like this music one down here, whatever this is, with 104,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Or 104 million subscribers.
Yeah.
That's the highest. That's the number one most subscribed to channel.
Yeah, but it's a collective.
Right. So PewDiePie is actually the third most subscribed to.
Yeah, but he's the highest subscribed to individual.
Yeah.
I think we're running low on time today. We kind of got started late.
Oh, and I wasn't even showing people that video.
Oh.
I was even showing people the
We're
thing.
just like watching it.
We're just
like,
watching the screen.
Like, no idea. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Think we're ready to wrap?
Yeah, sorry. And it's been a while, I know, since we've done a video, but we've been busy and...
All right. I'll try and get outraged about things. We'll have stuff to talk about tomorrow. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Subscribe on Twitter, Facebook, Just Us Chatting.
YouTube.
And on YouTube. Subscribe and like the video if you did. And hopefully...
if you're in the Midwest, fucking stay warm.
Stay
oh my
warm.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's very cold.
Yes.
So, all right. Take care.